for normalcy. Thank you. Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, for God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll do our roll. I'm present. Bishop O'Neill.
Present.
Mr. Heater.
Present.
Mrs. Bales. Present. Mrs. Barnes Griffin. Mr. Urban, I just got off the phone with, and he will be here momentarily. I will note for the record when he comes in. Mr. Lowe.
Present.
Good. We will turn to CEO comments.
Well, for all of our people in the audience that are watching live, I am very happy we're able to get live stream up and going for our meeting tonight. Just a few things I wanted to touch base. One, our registration is open, pre-K through high school. Go to enrollinmcs.org and you can sign up for new or for returning students. I also wanted to mention that right now the census is available and the information that's collected determines federal funding for our local school districts. So we need all of our families to fill out their census. In Muncie, the federal funds that are generated are used to pay for teachers, our student assistance coordinators, SACs, our school counselors, technology, professional learning, and special education support. And so you can see how critical this would be that all of our families would fill out the census so that we can make sure that we keep our funding and we're able to keep all those positions. Our elementary principals and Dia Young have been working on what elementary grades will look like for this last 9 weeks. And they would like to move to a satisfactory, unsatisfactory for the last 9 weeks based on the number of packets that were completed. When learning packets go home on Monday, they'll be sending letters home with our families. And then finally, we're anticipating when the stay-at-home order is lifted and we're able to get students and staff back into schools, that we still will need to have social distancing, and we anticipate we'll still need to be wearing masks. So I know we have a lot of volunteers out in the community that are making masks. So I am going to ask that you start making some masks for Muncie Community Schools, and we would greatly appreciate it. So that's it for me, Jim.
Dr. Kay, I would like for, if you think it's beneficial for you to form a CEO's committee with 1 or 2 board members, as many as 3 board members and any members of your leadership staff, to address contingency planning for the return and what that looks like. And so give that some thought. And I know that there are members who would be good fits for that CEO's committee. We have to, with the open door law, I think we can have up to 3.
That's right.
So I know that it's, as we approach May 1st here, it's we don't have a sense of what things are going to look like on August 1st. But it's not too late to have us all working with you on that.
That's right.
Process.
Great. Thank you.
So
We've been working on every type of scenario you can possibly think of. And so we have a nice sheet going. And so that could be a starting place and continue to add more ideas to it.
So for those who are watching publicly, donations of masks and any other donations, bleach wipes, hand sanitizers, whatever may be available to you would be much appreciated. And if you need to know where to get those to, you can email me or any board member or any member of the administration. we will be glad to work with you to get those donations to the right place.
May I add one more thing
Sure.
that I wanted to just acknowledge the hard work of all of our teachers. It has been a very trying time, and we know that learning to flip your classroom from a traditional to remote learning has not been easy, and it hasn't been easy on our families either. It's a very challenging time, and we have just been so pleased with the positive attitude. We're all in this together. Everyone's giving it their best effort. We know that, sometimes we may be disappointed that we plan great lessons and we don't have as many students that sign up for them, and we continue reaching out to families. But to everybody involved, thank you for all of your effort.
Likewise. Mr. Irvin has arrived, so we will note his presence for the record. With that, we will move to the consent agenda. Items A through G on the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? I would like to take a moment to publicly recognize two retirements. Kathy Schmaltz, a music teacher at Central High School, has been with MCS for 37 years. And Timothy Sheffield, a language arts teacher at Central High School for 37 years. So for Mr. Schmaltz and Mr. Sheffield, thank you for your years of service to MCS. And we wish you a wonderful, happy, and restful retirement. Anything else? Would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Heater was the motion. The second was Mrs. Bales. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Show it passed. Okay. We were on to, and there we go. My second page of the agenda somehow disappeared. The board schedule for 2021. Obviously, that's a tentative schedule. That's our goal, certainly. Any questions concerning that schedule? Would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. The motion is by Mr. O'Neill. The second is by Mrs. Barnes Griffin. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're on to compensation. The board will recall that at the last meeting, we had technical difficulties which have been resolved, but we have most everybody here. We did manage to increase our beginning teacher salary from a base of $36,500 to $38,500. So that was approved on the 14th. The compensation committee, consisting of Keith O'Neill, Tasha Barnes Griffin, Dr. Kay, Mr. Jerome, and myself, met over the course of about 6 weeks in looking at projected revenues. And I would thank Mr. Jerome for putting those together for us. We have, as a board, as a committee, been very conservative in our outlook moving forward, just understanding the uncertainties of the world as we find it right now. State revenues will unquestionably be down in the coming year, and I would not be shocked to see the legislature do something akin to what happened in 2009. There may be some grant monies to fill in around that for a period of time. So we have challenged the administration to put something out there that we think is sustainable. And the recommendation that we have in front of the board tonight, we believe will be sustainable, absent changes larger than anyone would anticipate. And certainly, if it gets to that point, obviously the board would look at what needed to be done. In deference to the uncertainties that exist in the world right now, we are going to recommend holding off on addressing administrative and staff salaries until after we see what the ADM count looks like in the fall. We will be addressing administrator and staff salaries, actually in the reverse order, staff and administrative salaries. Staff will be prioritized first and then administrators. And those, to the extent we make adjustments, and we will make some adjustments in September, again, barring unforeseeable changes, those will be retroactive to July 1st. But we do want to see what the fall brings before we make recommendations. We have determined that, again, placing teachers first, because teaching in the classroom matters more than anything else to the welfare of our students, that we are moving forward with teachers, and also because of our priority being placed on recruitment and retention of faculty. So that's why we are taking what we consider to be perhaps an unusual step during these times. As you look around to other districts and what's going on around us, we feel comfortable enough to recommend these compensation adjustments in spite of those uncertainties. The recommendation is a bit of the inverse of what happened last year, with teachers having 1 to 3 years of experience. It's recommended to be receiving a $2,100 base salary increase. Teachers with 4 to 9 years of teaching experience receiving a $2,200 base salary increase, with an additional $350 to that $2,200 for those teachers who have 4+ years of MCS experience. So if you are a 4 to 9 year teacher and you have 4+ MCS years, you will receive $2,550 addition to your base. Teachers with 10 to 19 years of experience, it's recommended to receive a $1,600 base salary increase, with teachers who have more than 4 years of MCS experience receiving an additional $350 on their base salary, for a total of $1,950 per year for those teachers between 10 and 19 years who have greater than 4 years with MCS. Teachers with 20+ years of experience is recommended to receive a $1,500 base salary increase, with teachers who have greater than 4 years MCS also receive an additional $350. So if you have more than 20 years of teaching experience and you have greater than 4 years with MCS, it's recommended that you receive $1,850 in addition to your base. The total cost of this raise results in an increased wage of $678,000 and reflects the board's belief in MCS, its faculty, and in the future of MCS. We are also recommending, in light of the absolutely amazing job that he has done since we went to e-learning, that Tony Harvey, the one exception to the administrative adjustments, receive a special one-time stipend of $2,000. Again, he has been working an amazing amount of hours trying to keep education being delivered in the best possible way. And I've heard from other people around the state who've been envious of the education when we've been able to deliver at MCS. Albeit not perfect, we are learning hard lessons that will serve us well downstream if the virus is not managed by the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year. So that is the recommendation from the comp committee. Are there any questions from the members of the board?
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's important to point out that, you know, this is completely in concert with the administration in terms of the support as well as input into how this proposal was created. And I think that's really important because you all are the ones who are fighting every day to deliver the education. So I think that's an important thing to note.
And then that's accurate. We had it reviewed by the administrators, Dr. Reynolds, Dr. Phelps, and we went through it carefully with Brad and Leanne. And this prioritizes, again, the future of MCS and its faculty. Any additional questions? If not, would entertain a motion.
Approve. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Motion by Mr. Lowe, second by Mr. Irvin. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And again, would emphasize as a parting note that the board is committed to taking up the issue of staff compensation and administrator comp in that order once we see what the ADM count looks like. These raises just approved will be effective July 1st. And to the extent there are comp adjustments to staff and administrative personnel, those will be retroactive to July 1st once we determine what the fiscal situation brings in September. So with that note, we will move to, do we have claims approval, don't we? Consent agenda, I'm sorry. I missed it. We have a dialogue of the board and future recommendations. Anybody have any dialogue?
I have a question for Dr. K and Dr. Reynolds. You mentioned, Dr. K, the social distancing or the best practice that I'm sure will be debated and gone through between now and the time schools get back in. Do you have any sense of what that means? Is that gonna create any facility challenges for us, you think, or what do you think there?
Well, we of course are looking at every model possible, but if we have to maintain social distance and if there's still capacity issues with the number of students or staff that can come together, we may have to think of different approaches for what school would look like. So would that be a mixed hybrid type of model where certain days some students come and other days they're involved with e-learning? Hopefully we're all back in session and we wouldn't have to, come up with other models, but we'd be naive not to be well prepared to implement some different type of models. And so when Jim asked if we get together with a committee with a couple of you, those will be different topics that we'll be exploring.
The things that we could look at is alternative uses of some of the space. And so if we have alternating days, presumably transportation's an issue too, because you're going to have, I suppose, capacity limits on our busing. But as we think about that, are there ways that gymnasiums can be spaced out and converted to be study areas for students who are not in class? Are there outdoor learning opportunities that we could put up rented tents? We've got 20 acres here. There's some ways. The bugaboo there is going to be transportation, because I suspect that's going to, to my mind, that's going to be the most difficult challenge is how do you maintain social distancing on a school bus? And I don't have a good answer for that. So
There are other things that go deep. Break, lunchtime.
Right.
How do you social distance? How do you keep X amount of students down to the manageable number going to the restroom?
Right.
It's a big equation.
it's a complex.
It takes some work.
We implemented breakfast in classrooms, so you may have to move to breakfast and lunch in classrooms, and then how do we give teachers the breaks that they will need throughout the day? And so there's many facets to work through, but we have started, and we are coming up and reading what many others are doing throughout the country as well as throughout our state, and we'll recommend some of the best models thinking of what is best for our students, because what we know, students being home is not a good model. We need them back in schools.
Have you? Well, I was just going to say, I had got a couple of emails had come to me this week, but one of them was talking about folks that kind of like being at home and the thoughts of alternate learning and online learning versus kids returning to school. Begin to think about our numbers. Hopefully they would love to come back, but I just know that there's rumbling of some who think that staying at home and teaching their kids is their way.
Well, what I would say is we're an innovative district, right? And so if we have a group of parents that say, we think, we would rather do more of a homeschooling, they're still getting support from teachers. So how would we offer a different type of blended model? So if you hear that people are out there saying that, we would love to know that so we could plan something to offer them.
Before, I know at some point in time, there was a committee early on that was looking at some, I think Cassandra was still here at that time in DIA, they were looking at some alternative learning, maybe having kids be at home some portion of the day. And so I just thought it had you all been thinking in that direction, what could.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that we have to acknowledge, whether we like it or not, is that the press of events has us having to consider how do you deliver an effective distance education at all levels. And statewide, nationwide, my observation has been of the literature that's coming out quickly, it's not been peer reviewed or anything else, is that there are not many people doing a very good job. So my personal bias, I will be quite clear and say that I think that's the ability to do that successfully is the exception rather than the rule. If I was forced to teach my two children, Leah and Sam, I'm not sure that all three of us would come through it alive.
I agree.
And so, but I do think there's going to be pressure brought to bear by, again, the realities of our circumstance, which force us to examine how to do a better job of it. And that's one of the things I think we're doing right now. And I understand the frustration of where we are and people asking, why are we still doing this? I think we are learning lessons, however painful, that will pay dividends downstream. Because I don't think we've seen the end of this event.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure this is going to be a part of the process, but I think it's going to be very important for us to communicate well and often what things are even on the table so that we can prepare the students, the parents, the guardians, whoever is going to have to make decisions about what they're going to do and their perception of that. People don't like change, even if it's great. And so I think it's going to be important for us to communicate a lot what we're thinking and where we're headed so that they have time to process.
We know the governor's going to be talking more about the current stay-at-home order and starting to lift some of that. Some of the guidance from the state will drive what our decisions are going to be as well.
Sure.
So any additional dialogue? No media is present. Again, before we depart, I would add to what Dr. Kwiatkowski said earlier, and that is for faculty and administrators out there and their staff members, you received very little notice of this change. I think at most it was probably a few days. You have all shifted gears and done a marvelous job under what are unprecedented and challenging conditions. So thank you for what you do. And we will keep working day to day, and we'll come out on the back end of this. So thank you. With that, anything else before we adjourn? Let's consider ourselves adjourned. Good evening.
Dr. King.